How's that going to be handled? And what about the property of loyalists that was confiscated by Americans during the war? Were they going to be, were the loyalists going to be paid for that, or they were just going to lose it? And so, in the treaty, we made some concessions to the British regarding the loyalists. But like the state of Virginia, where a lot of loyalists were, the state of South Carolina, where even more loyalists were, they didn't agree with that, so it didn't happen. And so the loyalists were pretty much left out. And so the ones that left the United States and went to England, they were not welcomed by the English people, okay? Because, well, they were Americans. Anyway, they were Americans. And as you can see, some of the things that the Patriots believed in very deeply, the Loyalists did too. There were a lot of Loyalists, like, John Dickinson, the guy that was against independence in the video, he was not a Loyalist, but he was against the idea of independence because he thought that he could foresee a lot of problems, A lot of Loyalists were kind of like John Dickinson. They were upset with the way the British government was treating the American people. Many Loyalists believed that the British government was denying them their rights as British subjects. But they still remained loyal, to the king and all. And so they go to England and, they don't fit in. They don't fit in. They're not accepted by the British people, and they just don't fit in because they still have the same values and opinions that the Patriots had about a lot of things, okay? But they stayed there because where else, some did go to Canada, but anyway.
So it created a dilemma.
Yes, it did. And as you can think, they were, those who decided to stay in the United States, their neighbors remember. And they were never trusted by people on either side of the Atlantic. And as you can see, on a state-by-state basis and local areas, Loyalists were punished severely for being Loyalists. And this is after the war is over. So, yeah. The only Loyalists that were treated halfway decently in England were those who went before the war actually ever started. People like George Washington's good friend, George Randolph. So, yeah, being a Loyalist was not a happy place to be. So, now, once we declared independence, that British government no longer existed. There was no national government of any kind in the United States. So, what are we going to do now?
Can you go back?
Oh, okay.
I needed to go back to.
The one before?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Anyway,
Thank you.
So, and that was alluded to in the parts of John Adams that you saw. Even in the Declaration of Independence, when Jefferson said that whenever any form of government becomes begins, meaning taking the right of the people, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government. You just don't destroy a government and not replace it with something else. Okay? And of course, too, once Declaration was declared, those old colonial charters that provided the government for each individual colony, they were no longer valid either. But the colonies, now the states, during the course of the war, had actually begun that process of replacing the old colonial charters with new state constitutions. Okay? So they were in place by the time the war ended. Local government throughout the war years continued to, it operated and functioned very well. A lot of people who were living here, unless the armies tramped through their land, they knew the war was going on, but it didn't really affect them on a day-to-day basis. And that's because the town and county governments were functioning functioning so well.